All right, maybe let's get going if we can. So it's Christmas Eve, right? Yeah, Christmas Eve 2021. Welcome to the Layer5 community meeting. Nice to have everyone. I think I'll be hosting today. So that's a nice surprise for all of you. There are going to be a number of other people that chime in as we go. We've got a few topics on the agenda that I can see, which is great. We have one core topic. We're going to try to do a little bit of a year in review and maybe a bit of a look ahead as well to 2022. And we've got a couple of slides to go over. They are in terrible, terrible shape, but that's all right. We're going to look at some of what's happened over the last year anyway. Before we get going, just some quick notes. We do record our meetings and post them on YouTube. We also take a moment to welcome any newcomers. So any newcomers on the call today? Anyone who hasn't been on this particular call before, that would qualify you as a newcomer. As you all think about that and work up the courage to say something, let me ask this, that if we always enjoy having webcams on. So if you've got a camera, whether your hair is brushed or not, turn it on. It's nice to connect with everybody. If you're in the Zoom, which is the only place that you would be, please add your last name in the participants list. That way everybody can get to know you specifically and not confuse you with the other Aditya or the other John or the other Bob or the other. There's a bunch of folks with the same names. Last names help with that. If you don't add your last name, you'll be harassed until you do. And so please do. And I don't know that we do have any newcomers other than Richa. I've been working on it. So Richa, not Rika.
Yeah, hi Lee, how are you?
Hello. I know you've been on a few of the calls. Have you been on this particular community meeting?
No, not as such. I just hopped once and left early, yeah. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, good. Yeah, nice to have you.
Yeah,
good to have you here. All right, let's dig in. Yeah, drop your name into the meeting minutes as well. I'm seeing a particular Abhishek Kumar spelled in a familiar way. Mr. Kumar, very nice to see that your name spelled that way, to see the fact that you're on. How's school?
Hey guys, good to be back.
Yeah. Oh, there he is too. All right. Well, what do we got? We got okay. All right. Good. Looking good. How are the grades?
It went pretty good, I guess. I'm happy with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Okay. How's the weather up there, by the way? You've got hot?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of fluctuating, but currently it's okay. It's kind of like it's not too cold, but sometimes it goes to extreme. So yeah. I'm having fun.
Yeah. So Abhishek is up in Dallas, Texas, which is just about 3.5 hours north of where I am. So I'm down in Austin, Texas. And down here, it's like, I don't know, it's in the 70s today or something. It's not going to feel like Christmas tomorrow, but we'll take the presents anyway.
It's kind of late 70s in here, so I'll be a bit.
Nice. Okay. Hey, let's jump in to take a look at what happened this last year. Let's take a peek. We've got a couple of slides. Again, not very well done. But in terms of what happened this last year, well, some things like we brought forth some new projects as a community. And actually, this is one way of thinking about what the projects are. And as I go through this, if people have comments and you want to add stuff, please do. Jump in and say something. there's a lot to reflect on that's happened over the last year. And these slides don't capture it all, not by far. Like we need to go write up a blog post and really talk about some things. This is one way of looking at the worldview for this community and the efforts that you give to different projects. So some of you might be maintainers of other projects that are not listed here. That's possible. The big rock that we focus a lot of time on is Mesri. And if you think about it, the other projects that we also spend time on are, they kind of satellite Mesri. I'll give an example. Like one is it's an underformed filter hub. A service mesh catalog is now in draft. Is public on Mesri.io. So here in a bit, maybe a meshmate Aditya will talk about that. But so there are filters that have been written, WebAssembly filters that have been written in the community. You got to imagine that maybe we would have eBPF applications written in the future as well. We haven't talked a lot about that, but when we look ahead here in a minute, we'll talk about eBPF. Service mesh patterns, that's its own GitHub org, right? Some of you have created service mesh patterns, and those patterns are being made available in a catalog, and those patterns are helpful for people to understand in general about how it is that you can use different aspects, different functions of a mesh, and what caveats and considerations to think about. That project stands alone, but it also very much integrates with Mesri and bolsters Mesri's value to people. Same thing goes for service mesh performance. It's a specification that stands alone. Different projects can implement it. Research and publications have been made this last year, but it also is implemented by Mesri. And so as you go around the circle here, all of that is true. Mesri supports 3 different types of load generators, but most of you are aware that we're leaning into deeper integrations with Nighthawk as the load generator to go deeper with. Maybe we'll talk about some of the upcoming features there. A lot of what we end up focusing on revolves around or is done in and around the CNCF, or to put it more generically, well, the Linux Foundation and the cloud native ecosystem. So most of these projects that we're looking at, some of them are either in the CNCF formally, or they are stewarded through working groups in the CNCF. So service mesh patterns are stewarded through the service mesh working group. Same thing with Nighthawk and the integration with Mesri. Much of those discussions happen inside of the CNCF service mesh working group. So there's a lot of investment that as a community that we have there. I'll highlight this as well. I guess I assumed that those marks would go away after. Is everybody else still seeing those marks?
Yes.
Yep.
Yellow
Okay.
marks.
Oh, okay. Those are Zoom marks. I got it. Okay. So Adina is adding some flavor to the presentation today. All right. Another thing to think about that like, if you step back far enough away from what the projects themselves do, how they like impact users' lives, what they change. Some of it's here is that we're decoupling service teams between, if you're a developer, security engineer, an operator, or even a product manager, that eventually the projects that are being worked on here, they are empowering each of those different personas to decouple and move more quickly, to decouple from reliance on the personas that are next to them. So I'd just like to give a couple of quick examples. If operators wanted more telemetry coming out of the microservices that are running, operators can go over to the mesh and turn up the dial, like turn on more metrics. If developers want to change the way that the sensitivity of a circuit breaker, or how load is being balanced, developers can go over and affect that change. Like everyone can use the same tool to see these things. If the security engineer wants to prevent certain traffic from going a certain direction, they can do that. So in the past, sometimes these other teams will have to ask each other to make those changes. So the requirement comes from one team, but then the implementation comes from the next. And as people understand the mesh more, and as our projects move forth, this is an underlying theme about what we're trying to accomplish. If you step all the way back, like we're trying to enable holistic service ownership. And the way that we're trying to do it is by making the infrastructure, the cloud native infrastructure that people are using, making that infrastructure self-service. So that a product manager could come over and affect like traffic routing. Like they could change a set of feature flag and then send a request to a different service based on some criteria. So there's a lot of power within the cloud native infrastructure that people are using today. It's not always made accessible. It's not always made understood. It's easy to consider that the operator, it's easy to understand how they are enabled and empowered by cloud native infrastructure. If you're a platform engineer, it's a great time to be a platform engineer, to be an SRE, to be an ops. And it's obvious. What is less obvious and what has been less enabled are some of the other roles around that. The intelligence in the infrastructure, if a developer understands it, it can make their job a lot easier. They can get the product manager off their back. If they want to change the price of something that's being sold, they can just, the product manager can go over and do that in the system. They don't have to go to the developers. So there's a lot of power in here. That's part of what we're going after. So I wonder if we take annotation. There we go. So some things from 2021. Mesri Cloud is one of the providers that people can use when you're running Mesri. There've been a little over 1,000 individuals that have signed up to use Mesri Cloud, that have tried Mesri Cloud. That's great. What would be even more interesting is if we put up some statistics about how many of those people that have signed up are coming back and with what frequency, and where some of those users are coming from, what type of organization they're coming from, or what features in Mesri they're using more than the next. Yep. Next year, like some of those details we have now, but next year or next time we do this review, I think we'll be in a much different position to be able to have specific telemetry. Today, we don't have all of that. So now that's just those that are using Mesri Cloud. There's a lot of people who go to Mesri and don't sign in. And so there's a count there. It's harder to quantify. Well, it's harder to qualify that number in part because of the way that the anonymity by which people would use the open source software. It's really difficult to say, well, was that the same person that was using it a moment ago, or should that be counted as another sign-in? And so, but for here, those that authenticate here, that's the number of people who've signed up. There's like, I don't think we didn't include a chart here, but there's a little over 103,000, like since Mesri Cloud has been a thing, a little over 100,000 logins. That's a lot. A lot of that comes from contributors as you go to sign in and you're working on things. Biggest thing of the year, probably, right? We've been working toward this for a long time. Donating Mesri, donating service mesh performance into the CNCF. We should have done it earlier, I think. Some things have changed. Does anybody, I had said, I'd kind of promised to a lot of folks that there's much that wouldn't change, but that we would get more support. Now, both of these projects are at a sandbox level. So there's only so much support given by the CNCF. Does anyone consider of what did change post donation? was there anything negative or anything positive, or was it kind of hard to tell the difference?
I would say positive, like, because we were at KubeCon North America, and we had the project officers for Mesri and SMP, and we had a lot of people coming in, and they were really excited about like particularly SMP, and there were a lot of questions coming in, and like it was very interactive. So people were really interested in our project, and I think like being in the CNCF definitely played a role in that. So yeah, positive.
Surprising how many people are interested in service mesh performance. At least I'll just say surprising to me. A lot of times I think of a specification as being kind of dry, and then you want to go use a tool that actually does something. There's a lot of interest in service mesh performance. When we look ahead here in a moment, we'll talk about why I think it's going to take off pretty big in the first quarter of 2022. I'll say why. Mesri and just us as a community, we end up, participating in Mesri, kind of carries around different badges in terms of internship programs that it participates in, the CII and the best practices by which Mesri adheres to in terms of how open source is done. This badge is specific to Mesri as a project. SMP has yet to earn that badge. I just got an email from them, that group yesterday. Some of you might have received it. There's an open need to go qualify. Anyway, a lot going on. In the community, there's different tools that we use and different ways that we interact. And these aren't all of them, but this is as much as we could get on paper in 30 minutes. So hey, in Slack, we do a lot of interactions in Slack. I think there's more than 2,100 people in there, I think. Some of you we've kind of talked in the past about like, hey, is that good? Like good, but how many joined this last year? Or like how many should be in there? Or how many are actually active? Like what's going on? Aditya, do you want to reflect on this at all? These numbers?
Yeah, okay. So the number of messages that were sent, these are actually stats from the past year. So including all the channels that we have, and there are definitely more than 2,100 members on community, but there's no real way to track all of them right now, right? So
yeah, it's a lot of messaging goes on. There's lots that happens in private chats, lots that happens in public chats. Do as much as you can publicly. Some stuff is just much more comfortable to happen privately. Understand that every time you're having a chat publicly, someone else is silently benefiting, or someone else actually actively jumps in. Like it's, the more open that we can be, the better. We're, as a community, I think, extremely open. But actually, if anyone considers that we're not being open somewhere, like, call it out. I think that's actually one of Layer5's, I think, differentiators. It's really community first. Many of you have access to sensitive systems and sensitive info. But it's because of your engagement that we're able to grow. The projects are able to grow. So some of that growth, when you look at it, like, there's various signals to look at in terms of, are we heading the right direction? Are people being engaged? Are people using this stuff? Is anyone interested in what you are doing if you're here as a contributor? I gave, yes is the simple answer, right? Yesterday, I think I said to a group of you, the CTO at the CNCF was saying, hey, was really curious as to what's going on, like wants to know more. That's just like one of a bunch of random signals that we get. There's a number of we did some press releases this last year. There's a number of people who are writing about things that you've done. You can see those if you go to layer5.io/news. You'll see some news people have written about you. Oh, so we definitely use GitHub. We use the heck out of GitHub, especially with GitHub workflows. We're using tons of those. There are 5 GitHub orgs that all of you do activities within. When you look across them, this was taken a while ago. There's over, and so we need to reassess, but to date, cumulatively, over 500 people have contributed to the projects. 300 of those have been within the various Mesri repos. What are there 30 plus repos today? This year, we hit 1,000 star mark. There's a blog post that's in draft about that. And this stat is definitely old. We're over 10,000, probably over 11,000 performance tests performed now for SMP. We have well over 100 releases of Mesri. I haven't looked in a while. And it was my strongest desire that we would release the v0.60 this year. And we are desperately trying to land that plane. Some of you are actively engaged in a focus on quality. And that's very much so helpful to getting the release out. Lots of people sign up to get emails about what's going on. We've sent out a number of emails, way fewer than we should. There's so much to talk about what you all are doing. We hit the 1,000 Twitter follower for the Layer5 handle. This is probably old. I'm assuming we're higher than this on Mesri now. So Mesri as an independent project is tracking right along. We've got the Service Mesh Performance handle out there as well. We haven't created one for Nighthawk. Not sure that we can sustain that we can or should. We need more of you that like to tweet and can go do it. We didn't quite get the numbers filled in here, so that's too bad. But if memory serves, there's about 500 LinkedIn followers for SMP, and there's 1,000, a little over 1,000 Mesri followers on LinkedIn. And we're right at like 2,800 now for Layer5. I don't know if you all know this, but there are other communities, there's other VC-backed competitors in the space that have full-time marketing teams that try to woo new followers. The 2 companies that look the most like Layer5, they have either fewer or right at the same amount of followers on LinkedIn. So it's like I said, people are really interested in what you're doing. So speaking of things that you're doing, I messed up this slide, so I have to apologize to Deepak. But Deepak, do you want to talk about this?
Lee, could you please carry on because I'm not at a good place? Like there's a bunch of sounds.
Sure, no problem. So something that had been done, most of you know, not all of you have necessarily taken advantage of this, but you all had created learning paths on layer5.io. So if you go to layer5.io, boy, we should probably. Yeah, you go to layer5.io and you go to /learn. There's a bunch of resources, but one of them is a learning path. There's a learning path out there now, Mastering Service Meshes for Developers. It's got 2 courses within it. We leveraged a lot of course content from workshops that we've given in the past. So anyone can go take those courses, go walk through all those chapters, all those interactive labs, and walk away this year. Next year, we'll end up with a certification for those courses. Also, next year, hopefully we'll have another learning path. So there's some good stats. We actually need to track some stats about how many people are taking those learning paths. We also this year, so those were released in 2021. Also released in 2021 was a whole new system, whole new discussion forum We generally refer to it as discuss, which is probably a pretty terrible name, but if you go to discuss.layer5.io, this was a community-driven effort to host and customize and curate a discussion forum. One of our new community managers this year, Deepak Gupta, went out and grabbed a few of the stats. So there are more of you that are using Discuss, and that's probably most evident here. This is daily active usage and monthly active usage. Someone asked a really popular question. This is, I think, when we posted Mesri's V070 roadmap. I'm just assuming either that or it was the fact that was my birthday right there. Yeah. Anyway, it's no doubt Mesri's roadmap. So Mesri's roadmap is out there, which is a great forum for discussion, right? Is to use that as the discussion point. So yeah, so that's good. Anyway, there's a bunch of things about what has all happened to each of you as individuals, to many of you. Many of you have participated as, some of you have spoken at KubeCon, some of you have spoken at other conferences. Some of you have done an internship here. Some of you have worked here. Some of you are doing internships or are working here or are volunteering under a specific role. Some of you are active contributors. Some of you are maintainers. Some of you are meshmates. Some of you are community managers. Some of you don't have anything better to do, so you keep coming back. That's a joke. Some of you are actively curating our YouTube channel, and which actually we didn't show statistics on. There's like 350 subscribers to that channel, so people watch this stuff. Back to Mario's point, we're going to start to live stream a few of these things. We're going to start to, Nivendu has some ideas around the Newcomers Call that happens on Thursdays. So he's trying to curate more of a schedule there and more of, there's a standard sort of introduction that happens on the Newcomers Call where people get introduced to the projects and people get welcomed and pointed, they get directions, a community map, a project map. They actually get a contributor journey, a guide. But more than that, hopefully we're also then taking that opportunity to give a workshop or two, give some tutorials. And as we do, those can be uplifted and shared a bit more. Like, I don't know that a lot of people understand that there are tutorials like lunch and learns that happen during the Newcomers Calls. We need to change that. Anyway, there's a lot of other people highlights to call out. I mean, a lot. I feel poorly that they aren't in here. You can look through the community meeting minutes and you'll see any number of graphics of just celebrations we've had for things that have gone on for various people. We finally, speaking of some of the roles, like some of the roles are fairly well defined. There's a new community handbook on layer5.io, layer5io/community/handbook. It defines some of the roles, but needs to define more of them and what they're about, what's expected of people. One thing that we had defined in 2021 was for maintainers, of which there are like 15 maintainers across the projects. Was that a maintainer? Like we try to define what it means to be active. There's a certain activity, there's a certain amount of activity that people need to have in that role. And we defined it by that you need to, stay active within a 2-month period, or just you're not performing the role, so you kind of forfeit the role. And there's many. That's just one random example of like there's a number of other roles and activities that we need to define more. So I just mentioned Deepak Gupta as a moment ago, along with Bami and Debo Priya as 3 individuals that have come in to help focus on community management, and they're doing a pretty good job. But what does that mean? What does it mean to be a community manager? I won't go through what all that means, but there's various systems that are accessed, various ongoing activities, various curation that happens within GitHub, within Slack, within the discussion forum, different events that are stewarded. There's a lot that goes on. So there's a lot of places to get engaged. Yeah, a lot of people that have come through. These are some stats on, I think I was showing before, like the different maintainers. The maintainers coming from, some well-known organizations. We took a moment last year, meaning 2020, to reflect on our meshmate of the year. It was Mr. Lada. Nikhil came here from as a senior student at a university UEM Jaipur, and had a hard time kind of doing Git commits. He and along with like eight other students at the same university. And Nikhil's, his attitude, his wherewithal, his grit to see it through, his willingness to learn, and then through the process, share what he's learning with others, got him this award at the end of the year. Like, it was a year and a half of him being here before he got this. And then he's been here a year since then. And he's just been helping. Like, he was there's any number of things to attribute to his name. The learning paths that we were just talking about, he championed that effort. And he just did it based on just showing up and continuing to try. So we have a Meshmate program, right? Which is what Nikhil is a part of. This year in 2021, there's been a little over 500 people joining into the community, and also signaling that they desire to be connected with a Meshmate and going through that process, that onboarding process. That's 500. That's more than the number of days in the year. I expect that number will only grow. It absolutely will only grow. We actually need more Meshmates. There's a high demand for Meshmates. There's in part a high, this fact that Mesri is the #1 most popular project in all of the Linux Foundation is a direct reflection of the fact that there is a Meshmates program, that people do give of their time and do share, that no one's pedantic in the community. No one looks down their nose at others when they ask a question. People will tell you, or I will tell you, to make sure to do your homework. Don't be lazy with your questions. If do your RTFM, read the manual first, but then absolutely come and ask your questions. And the manual needs to be updated, and that culture and the community, I think, is very attractive to many people who are learning, many people who believe in the vision of the projects and want to make an impact. So that kind of a thing can only be encouraged. This number on the screen is old. Who can tell us what the current number of applicants to the program is?
I guess it's 1.1K.
It's actually more than 1,300, and it's growing by 15 to 20 applications a day now.
Yeah.
Aditya is having a tough time for sure. Being a Meshmate is tough.
Oh yeah, it's unfair. Yeah, he has an unfair advantage. Here's something to be aware of, just for those that are interested in this program, is that, it says that there are 3 graduates. It's sort of, although Mesri itself as a project is listed, I think, twice in the LFX program. And then the other projects that we do with SMI, Service Mesh Interface, SMP, Service Mesh Performance, there's a collection of internships or a collection of projects that are represented by the community. So it isn't just that one. So actually, if you think that there's 1,300 or however many applicants, that there's more than that, because that's just one of the entries. And so there's definitely more than 3 graduates as well. We will perpetually, participate in that program. I think I've let many of you in on this insider's secret in the past, and that is that if you're here meaningfully and consistently engaging, you're getting an internship through that. Like you're just taking it for yourself. You might not have gone like at the end, you might not receive an LFX certificate, but you will have received the same experience. And that's the most important thing. There are more open internship slots to go around than we necessarily have mentors to manage. So just as soon as any of you are ready to mentor someone else, let's open up another slot. Like, LFX is one of the internship programs that we spend time in. Okay, so we didn't get through kind of creating the slides and kind of showing them in the right way, but this is in part, like this is the underlying premise of a lot of things that we're doing specifically in and around the use of service meshes and enabling what they can do. This stuff is, if you all aren't confused, then I'm amazed, because it's complex. It's hard. Getting Kubernetes stood up and exposing a service is hard enough unto its own. And yeah, so Mesri is trying to help solve some of that. There's just I think that the thing to say about Mesri and in reflection of 2021 is that Mesri is a platform. It's extensible. And I wanted to say that we've been taking advantage of that Mesri as a platform and the ability to have plugins. Mesh Map as a plugin is one of many plugins. It's the most prominent one. Many of you have worked on it. Many of you have seen it. Many of you have given comment on it. And you're not the only ones that have seen it or given comment on it. It was, I think it was just a little over a month ago that AWS App Mesh team had asked to meet with us. And they had reached out and asked to meet with us. So we obliged and showed them, Mesri, Mesh Map. They gave some really, they had some very complimentary things to say. Most people are unaware of the power of what's coming in service mesh patterns. One way of characterizing that, so this is both like looking back, like what we're doing with patterns is about halfway complete. One way of understanding how powerful these are is that if you understand the Crossplane project at all, then know that the patterns, service mesh patterns, are built on the same tech as Crossplane. So the things that project does and the way that they market it and speak to it, Mesri is ultimately capable of that as well. So it might take some time for you all for some of you to let that settle in, but it's going to be pretty powerful. Some of you are working on a service mesh catalog in which these patterns are made available. They're described and they're importable into Mesri. Well, that catalog won't just have patterns. It'll have some of those WebAssembly filters that we were talking about before, maybe some of those eBPF packages that we were talking about. There are other mesh add-ons as well. Prometheus, Grafana, those kinds of things. Those can be externalized and made available for people to import and deploy in Mesri. Okay, so let me see if I can get back to like the year in review things. So that is to say that when we look ahead here, one, it would be curious to know what these numbers look like. We're going to bring in more support. We're going to get a little more serious about telling the world what we're doing. And by that, I mean marketing the projects and telling people about what's going on. So we very much so intentionally want to grow more, bring in more contributors and bring in more maintainers, similar to what I was talking about mentoring people and the need for more mentors. It's the same thing for maintainers. Some of the maintainers that are here now are working pretty hard just to try to keep up with the number of pull requests that are open. That's just one way of measuring the things that they do. need to, as a community, vote on and eventually announce the Meshmate of the Year for 2021. Looking ahead, I had mentioned that we're going to get into eBPF. It's been on our backlog for a long time, but it's going to be thrust upon us as Cilium, a new service mesh, gets announced next year. Its claim to fame will be around on performance. And that's going to boost people's interest in service mesh performance, that project. They're going to want to know a lot of statistics. There's going to be a lot of thrashing and maybe smashing of service mesh projects in terms of how they're measuring each other, measuring themselves, comparing across each other. So eBPF as a tech, well, in some respects, it's a data plane tech. And so too is WebAssembly is a data plane tech. They kind of fall into the same category in terms of how Mesri would treat them. But what I'd said before is like that concept of having eBPF packages in the service mesh catalog. Yes, we should have that. And Mesri should be able to, like, where Mesri and these projects will be unique is in the ability to have user-friendly configuration of that tech. Right? Real-time injection of where those the eBPF programs run and when and why and what they're doing, a real-time configuration of those programs. This stuff is really scary to a lot of folks, especially when it's you're in the data path. And so having tooling that confirms for them what's going to go on is really helpful. Other new projects to come forth next year. So one of those I had said for learning paths, Meshmaster. Meshmaster as a certification, not just on a specific mesh, but all meshes and how they work. So we've got a logo for the service mesh certification. We've got a learning path for it. Now we need for folks to work on, folks to work on a system behind the learning paths that let people sign in and then track their quiz answers or, kind of track their test. And then eventually issue them a certification, a badge. Separately, there's a need to create the world's service mesh playground. Mesri was built in part to answer the question about what service meshes do and how should you use them. Running Mesri as a hosted playground will do a lot of things. It'll make Mesri, it'll focus all of us on the quality of Mesri. It will let people come and learn, give a lot more feedback on the features and what's going on. So hosting this as like play.mesri.io will be immensely helpful for the project. So many people will come and learn. So many people then this playground can be used as part of the learning paths. Instead of having temporary interactive labs hosted through Katacoda, people can come and interact with the real thing. They can go use Mesri to provision those service meshes and walk through those labs. So actually a very important project in that regard. So launch and learn, I guess, maybe instead of lunch and learn. People can, take advantage of they can, choose from the service mesh catalog here as well. So this Meshmaster, like when you reflect back over the last year, maybe year and a half, we've had all kinds of workshops delivered, a little over 5,000 students. We haven't produced that certification yet, but that's what we're looking toward. Good. Okay, good. So, wow, I'll just check the time. We don't need to necessarily talk about the rest of these. It is, we'll make these slides, they are available. They're available in the community drive now. It's good to reflect on who it is that we're trying to assist with the projects and what challenges they have, what questions are they trying to answer? And how can the projects that you all are working on answer these questions for them? How can, and it gets more detailed about what questions they have and what features we think will address those. This ties into the roadmaps for Mesri and for the other projects. So good. Any comments before we wrap that up and move into some other agenda items? I'll share the link in the. Good. Everybody was just waiting for me to get done with the presentation. Yeah, me too. Cool. Well, Piyush, do you want to talk about a blog post that you've got upcoming?
So I have been harassed multiple times to talk about unit testing for Mesri CTL. So I took some time and wrote it all down. So this is the blog post I came up with. It explains everything that I say each time in the meetings. So I have tried my best to explain all the things that will come into your mind when you think about writing test for Mesri CTL. And if I miss anything, you are welcome to call me out and help me improve this blog. And if you have some additional doubts, we can talk about them in Slack maybe, or over the discuss form. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's great. Like, not only is this specific blog very helpful, and not only is Piyush championing the code coverage that's happening here for unit testing and integration testing, but also this is a great example of the fact that people are welcome to come write a blog post and talk about what you're doing, talk about things you've learned, or make a call for others to come participate. And that's in part what Piyush is doing. Something that is, another interesting point of reflection is just, if you take a look at just Mesri CTL as a command line client, there's a couple of programs out there, a couple of utilities that will help you measure the lines of code. And CLOC is one of those. It has lots of configuration options that you can present to it to say, ignore comments or only count this, or don't ignore that. But it's not necessarily a small CLI. Another way of measuring the size of this CLI would be, how many commands are there? And that's maybe a great challenge to give to any one of you. The answer to that is right at your fingertips. These docs, they have all the commands here. You don't need to manually go count them up. These are in a data file in Jekyll in the docs. And you can have Jekyll do a quick count and tell you, like, the surface area by quantity, how many commands there are and subcommands. So great. So thank you, Deepak and Piyush, for writing this up. This is really great. It's pretty interesting. There's some really intriguing things to write another blog post about workflows and how they're executed, not just with respect to unit testing, but all of it. Interpreting a graph like this too has always been kind of a challenge to me. It's another interesting thing to tease out a little bit. So like Piyush had pointed out in the blog post, this one comes from CodeCov. This is a tree graph. They have a couple of other types of graphs. Oh, I forget the names of them, but they're also equally as confusing. So yeah, an interpretation of what those are would be great. Like that's a great tutorial for a newcomer's call or something like that. Nice. Abhishek, did you want to talk about troubleshooting mesh map? Okay, so Abhi,
Hello.
yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. So I had a connection interruption, please, if you can.
Oh yeah, do you want to just talk about what you've done here?
Yep. Sure. This is the troubleshooting guide for the mesh map. This has been like curated for someone who is just starting developing for mesh map or just using it in general. So it's very common since it is, mesh map is in very early stage and it is like developing each day. So it's very common to get around some issues and scratching your head. So you don't have to actually so this is a curated list of errors, like common errors, and it will be like more items will be added in the list in the future, so as to cover every aspect of those. And from here, this list will help you solving your errors, troubleshooting the mesh map, and getting everything right for you. So you can also write like your blog post, discuss items on discuss forums, and be active there.
Yeah, this is great. I think it earned my vote earlier.
Yeah.
And there's my vote too.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, all the meeting folks do what it. No, and just
the discuss form works very well for this. If it's some things that are in Mesri as well, there's in Mesri docs, there's an FAQ page. It's always in need, or there's a troubleshooting page as well. It's always in need of a little more. Mario might have some fresh ideas there about troubleshooting. But that's great. Aditya and Deepak. You guys want to talk, just kind of add to this with
Yeah, like Abhi said, so since what he wrote is on the discuss forum, it would help everyone out, right? So when they try to set up mesh map, and there are a lot of conversations that go on Slack because everyone runs into errors while setting up their dev environment. So if we had that conversation out in the public, it might help someone later on to set up their environment. So using the discuss forum is helpful for everyone, and it's also easy now because we have a Slack command which helps you post any of the questions that you might have directly from Slack into discuss. It's /discuss and the thread number, and it would post automatically on discuss. Deepak, if I missed out on anything, you can say.
No, Aditya, you covered it all. Thank you.
Nivendu.
Yeah, as Lee mentioned, we participate in a lot of open source programs. So Google Summer of Code, Google Summer of Docs. If you are interested in technical writing, Linux Foundations internship program, we participate across all those programs. And this year we also had a chance to participate in some other programs like She Code Africa. So these were really impactful, and like the mentees who joined in on these programs were really benefited from the time they spent here. So we have, I guess, like we'll surely participate in these programs if given a chance this year. So yeah, those are coming, and we also participate in all the other developer conferences. So right now we already have 2 events coming up. One is for DevConf, which is in January, and the other is for KubeCon Europe, which is happening in Valencia, Spain, and we'll definitely participate in the other KubeCons that occur through the year. And yeah, like we already have a couple of talks lined up, which I guess we will talk about at the start of next year. So yeah, things are pretty exciting.
So if it isn't obvious, like Navendu was saying, come and give a talk. If you want to submit, like there's a bunch of people in the community that will help with your submission or give you ideas or co-present with you, or there's a tech conference every day of the year. There are oodles of them. And there are so many people that have yet to understand a lot of the things, a lot of the projects that are being worked on, various aspects of them. So there are example decks as well, or like templated decks that you can take and go present. And so, like a really good piece of advice here, I think, is, is to watch one of the recorded talks from the list, watch one of the recorded talks that have been given before, rehearse it, and then go deliver it. For my part, if someone repeats verbatim what I've said, I would only take it as flattery, and I would only be pleased that you're telling other people similar things. I would not receive it as you copying anything that I've done like that. That's exactly what I would hope that you would do. Yes, I'm just saying. So like those templates, those slides, those talk recordings, those are there for you to share as well. But, please do. To wrap up today, Navendi, do you want to? I alluded to this. Do you want to?
Yep. So we have Newcomers Call every Thursday, and what we do is we try to help new contributors make their first contribution to the Layer5 community. So what we have been trying to do lately is ask the newcomers to suggest topics that we can discuss on the call, and one of the maintainers or one of the contributors who have been here for some time can come in and help deliver that topic. So to help the newcomers. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a session on contributing to Mesri and Mesri CTL. So that session was suggested by one of the newcomers in the community, and yeah. So if you are new here, then this is a good opportunity to give some input on what we need to cover on the Newcomers Call. So feel free to suggest topics and add them here, and we'll try our best to present those on the Newcomers Call. And to add to the previous topic, there is a link in the comments that points to the different internship programs that Layer5 participates in, and so there is an FAQ session on that page, and that pretty much sums up what we expect during internships and how you can land an internship here. So I think Lee touched this briefly, that when he talked about the internship programs. So yes, that is a good read and a good North Star to set yourself up while you are participating in the community.
Anything else from anybody else today? It's really special, by the way, that many of you are sharing Christmas Eve with us. So there's almost 20 of you on the call, and it's great. Now's a good time, by the way, if we get a little bit of quiet time, if any of you do over the next little while, think about, I would encourage each of you to think about this. Like, why are you here? I mean, in a good way, think about this. What do you want out of your time here? What would you like to do in 2022? Are there some things you'd like to see changed, or some things that you'd like to handle or become an owner of? Think about it. Like, think about it from a selfish perspective. I encourage you to. And for my part, I would say, please come talk to me. Like, come let me know what that is. Because the more that we're leaning into things that you want to do, the more that you'll be engaged, the more successful you'll be. Anybody have anything else today? Merry Christmas. Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
everyone.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Thanks
Have
all.
some
Merry
egg-
Christmas.
Have some eggnog for me.
Merry Christmas. But I don't think in India they have Christmas, right? Done.
Yeah.
We celebrate all all occasions. So
I know you are
we
a
just need
festive
an
nation.
excuse.
I think you have you have a lot of holidays or
Yeah.
and so on. But and the New Year is also now, or is different? The ending.
Yeah,
The
the
year.
concept is a little difficult to understand with New Year, because every culture, like, we generally have different New Years for different cultures, but 31st is also our New Year. So
Yeah. Okay. Because here, for example, except Romanian who are celebrating Christmas earlier, everybody Serbian, Bulgarian, Ukrainian, Russian, I think even Greek, not sure, but the Christmas is 2 weeks later. Yeah, or 1 week. It's on 7 anyway, or 6 or 7 January. So it's in 2 weeks, not now. That's why.
Yeah. I have to go look
Okay.
that up, Adina. I didn't know that.
Yes. I mean, so I'm celebrating every time in a way.
Yeah.
And we do the same with Easter. For example, we have Catholic Easter and Orthodox Easter. In Romania, there are public holidays only for one, depends on which side you are, but usually we do it for both sides. But especially on Christmas and New Year, all the Orthodox are 2 weeks later. And I know this because I'm going to ski exactly before they start the holiday, so I can get everything. So on January of 2, I'm in Serbia.
Wow.
It's not so far. Don't imagine it's so far. We are just neighbors. It's pretty close. And they have better roads than Romania. Yes, that's true. But it's like this, doing holidays in Romania, once they are finished, just almost 1 day to recover yourself, and then we go to Serbia, because that's where you party. I mean, you have very good food, extremely good food. I recommend you. Don't come to Romania. Go to our neighbors. They cook better. Yeah, and same way for Austria. If you want good food, go to the neighbors. Yeah, but so it's like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I'm very confused of just holidays. And every time someone is writing to you to do something, you're like, oh man, but it's holiday already. But even if it's not. But yeah, today it's starting. I talk too much. You see, Lee, I can talk much more than you. At least what you say, it's on the subject. You see, I can go around the subject.
Yeah. You got
Yeah, so
competitor.
I'm happy with the presentation. I had a plan to wrap up all the session that I went to you this year. I even got those with 2021, not 2020, because those I put them aside. But I didn't do the summary. But yeah, the summary, there were some big things happening. 3 KubeCons you had this year. In each one in different continent. 3 projects migrated to CNCF, right? 2 new organizations. this thing with Service Mesh Book that you are very optimistic that you're gonna finish next year or by the end of next year. Yeah, it's good to be optimistic. It's good to have a plan, even if you. I'm a person with plans. I cannot live without plans. I have more plans at the same time all the time, and this is how they get done. Not in time, but at least they got. Yeah. What else? A lot of feminine contribution also, and this thing on the community like took. Now I forgot the words. I'm trying to learn German and I cannot speak anything. Like took the flight, especially with the girls hosting it.
Yeah.
Actually, 4 continents. You are present in 4 because Africa it's one. It's a continent. America it's one. America and South America are different, right? Yeah, no, they are the same. But you had in China and in Europe, so that's a pretty cool thing. Then another cool thing that I like very much is the Friday call with community, even if I miss a lot in the second half, because you bring up people from different organizations, different companies who had their open source project or they just started, and it's they have cool. They're gonna have an impact. I don't know, long or short, but there were a lot. There were some guys from Microsoft. There was from Kuma. There was from a lot of other companies. So you can actually take advantage of the Friday call to find out some connections with other. And yeah, it's details, presentations, and so on. What else? I'm still lazy and talk too much.
Oh yeah, the litmus chaos.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A lot of things on the automation side, a lot of things automated, a lot of them. So if we compare to 1.5 years ago, there weren't so many types of automations how you have now, and also the thing that you moved in the cloud. And I'm not sure, but I think you have 2 types on the pipeline side. So you have the Git flow, not Git flow, GitHub, no, the GitHub Actions. But I think you also have some Netlify pipelines, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. A cool thing that is modern with the static sides, that also innovative ideas on a lot of things on how to organize the project or how to start, so you can learn a lot for yourself also. And you have the Spanish editions, not Spanish, but I cannot say.
Well, yeah, no, I think that's about right.
It's not from Spain, but it is.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
there are a lot of. So I think for 1 year, a lot of things, even if you think if you're gonna think, let's start all this, you're gonna get too anxious to start so many things. Maybe not you, but a normal person will do. So yeah. Now something from my side, don't need to compare yourself with you in the past. Like, do better than yesterday. No, that's for me in the past. I cannot be better than yesterday. If I can do better and do some stuff, it's good. So, but yeah, there are a lot of things and a lot of energy, a lot of dynamics here. So congrats, guys. And thank you for letting me assist. I'm being the European spy here all the time.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, I think we've reincarnated the release meeting, the CI meeting, like 3 times or so. It won't die, or it only grows in importance. I mean, the number of workflows, how many build minutes, or like just how many minutes we've used over the last year, that would be pretty interesting. There are workflows running like almost all the time now. And
yes, all the time.
Well, don't let your eggnog get warm, I guess.
Yeah, there's somewhere exactly. And maybe if they are going to be allowed in the block, that we have this tradition where kids anywhere grown up go from apartment or house and they sing carols or stuff like that. But now it's more on the small cities. It's not. But yeah, if they will come and knock at the door, and I will open because I'm curious to see about. Then they will sing. They will just sing carols, one or two carols. That's an interesting. We have this like you have this thing with trick and trees or something in Halloween. We have it on Christmas, but no one is gonna do anything harm on your house. It's just good wishes. Like I said, I can talk a lot. Let's yeah. So you had a great year. I would say all of you guys be proud of participating on taking initiatives. And yeah, like Lee said, just whatever comes to your mind. He's so open and so many ideas that like I cannot even. So if I will have like 5 of them and work on one for the next year will be good. But yeah, all of them seems to have shape.
Yeah, they really do. They
In
really
good
do.
shape.
There's a lot of things that, like in like Mesri CTL is a good example of like, I don't know, I experienced something new a lot of times that I use it because that wasn't my idea, or like, you know, and it's not about me, but I'm just reflecting on my experience. Like, yeah, a lot of you are bringing your own ideas and forming your own, and some of you have been here long enough that you've set the convention, and now your idea is the one that's being adhered to. So yeah. Well,
yeah.
Have a great Christmas Eve. Catch you all next week. Catch you all on Monday.
Yeah, and let's have let's have a dinner on the new year to, you know, motivate us for the rest of the year. Bring
I think hard to get rid of me. I think I was the person he was talking about. That some other people that don't have anything better to do. I don't know.
Very good.
I did it here also. At least on Christmas on the ending.
I'll be hip deep in wrapping paper tomorrow. So.
Okay. Yeah. See you guys. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks all. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.